The only laws protecting you against AI are about to be bulldozed. That's if the Trump administration gets its way. A leaked version of an executive order has been making the rounds in the Washington Post, Politico, CNBC, in which Trump seems to be running roughshod over not just his own party, not just over Congress in general, but over basically all political opinion in the United States when it comes to AI, in order to more or less hand exactly what the tech companies want to them in the form of this order. Also, before I get into this, I just wanted to point out that I am now a contributor to Hard Reset. If you are not a subscriber on Substack, you should check them out. They look at the effects of tech on society, on labor, on politics, and I'm contributing now a weekly column to them. This topic is my first installment. So, why do we care about this? Well, right now, nothing else is protecting you legally against the excesses of AI. There are no federal regulations on the books when it comes to AI. I mean, we're decades past social media and we still don't have a federal data privacy law of any kind. So states have been doing the job. Right now, the 5.5 million people of Colorado are protected against the use of AI that might discriminate them in, finding a house, getting health insurance, getting employment. In Illinois, it's illegal to use AI as a therapist, which has been a huge thing. If you've been following me, you know that I think a lot about AI psychosis, and that's a big thing. And in Illinois, they also have big anti-discrimination protections when it comes to AI and jobs. You can't use a proxy like zip code, for instance, to teach an AI system that you are, what the ethnicity of a job applicant is. And in California, here where I am, the 40 million people who live here are able to look inside the safety and security protocols of big foundational companies, all of whom are here. So we really have seen a world in which state law has been doing a really powerful job. Now, back in the summer, the big, beautiful Bill Act was about to be passed, and Senator Ted Cruz just slapped on a little addendum that would have put a 10-year moratorium on state law about AI into federal law. And the thing went down in flames. Maybe it's just people don't like Ted, but 99-1, that thing got killed in the Senate. The House passed it, but the Senate killed it. And this was, people very ideologically opposed to one another coming together over this idea. Cruz said at the time, we're going to be trying this again. And he was right. So now Congress is also going to try and slap this onto the National Defense Appropriation Authorization Act, which is coming up for a vote at the end of December. It's one of these pass the budget kind of things. It's a must-do kind of legislation. And it is, as a result, I think, the effort is to try and sort of bulldoze, rhino horn this through there. But why would you want to do this? Not only do all the governors hate it, 1,000 governors and state legislators and so forth have all come out against this, but Americans hate it. A September 2025 poll that Gallup did found that 80% of Americans believe that there should be absolutely regulation on AI, even if that slows down the development of the technology. So all the talk from Silicon Valley about it, we have to move fast, we're going to fall behind China, it's a matter of national importance. Americans don't care, right? Tech companies care about that. And so it's particularly galling in a world in which, there's very little democratic input here. There's a famous book by Edward O. Hirschman called Exit, Voice, and Loyalty. And those are supposed to be the three choices available to the constituents of any well-functioning system in a democracy. You're supposed to be able to walk away from the product, speak up about it, or stick it out. Exit, voice, or loyalty. Well, more and more we've been seeing in the tech world that those three options are getting stripped away. And in this case, it's just clear that this is really an effort to try and do that again. Now, why would President Trump be doing this? On the one hand, so what is in the executive order? Let's talk about that for a second. So he's directing his attorney general to basically go after AI state laws. He's ordering various agencies to withhold federal funding from states that have engaged in onerous laws. And his rationale is, has to do with China, has to do with national security, has to do with the need to move fast, has to do with trying to do away with a patchwork of laws that will be difficult to comply with, he says. And it also, has to do with what he calls woke AI, the idea that blue states are somehow imposing wokeness on AI. Oh my God. Well, one other reason, one of the reasons that this is probably going forward is the amazing amount of both money and adulation he's been getting from tech companies, whether it's the crypto dinners that have been raising all kinds of money, that money flowing directly into his pockets through his own crypto efforts, or the CEOs who all showed up at the inauguration. They then also ponied up money for this renovated ballroom. A bunch of them were, some of the same people were all at this big, weird reception for Mohammed bin Salman, who was in Washington, D.C. this week in order to talk about, a co-investment fund around AI and to the tune of hundreds of billions of dollars. So there's all of that. But I also had a really interesting conversation with a lawyer from the ACLU who was pointing out to me that the efforts by the federal government right now to put together a kind of panopticon, a big surveillance apparatus through the Department of Homeland Security, which they've tapped Palantir, a private company, to do, depends on being able to buy from data brokers all sorts of data that they can't get otherwise. And the really interesting thing of it is that data tends to be held by the states. They are the custodians of that kind of data. And so they are actually in a legal position to cut off a private company's access to that stuff. They regulate commerce inside their borders. And so state law has been a way of slowing down some of the DOGE kind of efforts going on here. So maybe that played into the thinking here as well. Regardless, it really flies in the face of any kind of democratic input here. What chance does this have of actually taking effect and having an effect? Well, experts in this stuff, like a guy named Brad Carson, who heads the Americans for Responsible Innovation, says that this is a total misreading of how commerce law is supposed to work. And he says it's basically like the tobacco companies. You just fight all kinds of law, and then if a law does pass, you just sue. That's that sort of playbook. All I know is that Scott Wiener, the state senator here in California who authored the big bill that is mentioned in the executive order, SB 53, that gives Californians a look inside the security and safety protocols of companies. He basically called this a royal edict and said, we have no right for this. So you can be sure that these states are undoubtedly going to sue for their right to protect you in a world in which the federal government has not. The Rip Current is produced and created by me, Jacob Ward. And if you liked this show and you want more content like this, go to theripcurrent.com, where I publish a weekly newsletter that covers these same sorts of stories of the big invisible forces that have us all in their grip. And if you want to really do me a favor, if you could go to where you have listened to this or watched it and like it, share it, or even better, review it. Holy cow, is that helpful? It's the best possible way for me to find a new audience. I really appreciate you being here. Thanks for listening.